Well, hello everyone. My name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. We're rolling along with an antagonist you can use for a horror-themed Dungeons & Dragons game this month, and we're going to cover the first of their minions right now. Here in March, we're covering La Contessa for your Dungeons & Dragons game. She was once a noblewoman and a brilliant alchemist who transformed herself into an undead horror so she might continue her hunt. What is she hunting? Well, vampires, of course, which ruined her kingdom back in the day and slew her entire family. Because of this transformation and the decades that she has dedicated to destroying this foe, along with other sentient undead, her sense of morality has slowly but surely ebbed away until oftentimes she is very close to the monsters that she wants to kill. As a reminder, the horror subgenres that La Contessa follows are the following: gothic horror, scientific horror, and vampiric horror. And we're going to cover the first of our minions right now, which is the Silk Rat and the Silk Rat Swarm. Whether a single scrap of richly colored cloth or banded together into a well-tailored clothing article, silk rats are devious constructs that seek to constrict and devour their prey when the time is right. At rest, they are indistinguishable from an inanimate silk, or nest together into a fine imitation of any attire or anything else really made out of that fine fabric. Once in motion, however, the silk rats snap into an angular approximation of an oversized vermin, complete with remarkably sharp teeth and a lashing tail of loose threads. In life, La Contessa loved fashion. She and her younger sister had sponsored many a seamstress and tailor in their kingdom. Whenever she was at court, the women sported whatever the latest fashion was. Most didn't know that La Contessa directly consulted on the designs she wore, and even stitched together a few dresses herself. After vampires destroyed everything she held dear, the alchemist's first creation was the Silk Rats. These constructs could hide in plain sight, ranging from a fine cloak she wore to a pocket square, handkerchief, or just a pile of rags. Their artificial nature allowed them not only to stymie La Contessa's undead targets, but devour their lesser minions as well. Their greatest accomplishment was slowly infiltrating dozens of them into a vampire's manor and replacing all of the curtains. Then, when the time was right, the constructs just let all the sunlight in. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the Silk Rat and the Silk Rat Swarm statistics for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The Silk Rat is a tiny construct that is challenge rating 1/4 and is unaligned. They have the appropriate hit points and speed and armor class one would expect a creature of that low challenge rating to have, but they do have a lot of different immunities. They are immune to necrotic and poison damage, as well as charm, exhaustion, paralyze, petrified, and poison. They are amorphous, so they can squeeze through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide without squeezing, because they're just made out of silk. As long as they remain motionless, they are indistinguishable from a scrap of cloth. And they do have pests, so they can move into the same square as another creature of tiny size or larger. They do have a bite attack and a minor ability to blind people by basically binding themselves across a creature's eyes. So a handful of these may be challenging for a first level party, but they don't stay challenging for long, but that's why we have the Silk Rat Swarm. This is a challenge rating 2, small swarm of tiny constructs that's also unaligned. It shares the same damage immunities and condition immunities. It also has false appearances, one might expect, and a bite attack against anything that's in its square. In addition, however, it does have blindfolded, so any creatures that are grappled by the Silk Rat Swarm also gain the blinded condition, and their bite grapples the target if it hits. In addition, they do have the ties that bind, so if a creature enters a Silk Rat Swarm space or dons it as an article of clothing without realizing it's actually a swarm, the swarm may automatically grapple that creature by just using its move action, as it unfolds into, well, a bunch of silk rats and covers it and binds it up. There's a lot of different ways that you could use a Silk Rat Swarm in your campaign, either against your players or to aid them if La Contessa is trying to get them on her side. I'd love to hear how you'd use them in your own campaign down below. Of course, you can find La Contessa, the Silk Rats, and all the rest of her minions, along with hundreds of other horror-themed monsters that are all for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and all perfectly free at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're more interested in the horror role-playing game projects that I have that are not Dungeons & Dragons, or the horror fiction that I write that includes grease paint right here, you can always go to www.zacharyoshea.com. As always, I really do appreciate your time and your attention, and have a wonderful rest of the day.